Right, that's me in. Cheers, lads.
Cheers.
Pleasure to be here.
Slange aye.
Slange,
wow.
yeah.
Oh, very nice. Right, so we've got drams. We've got bottles. We've got everything ready to go.
Ready to roll.
Right, Angus, you know what to do. Clap us in. Welcome along to the Whiskey Stories podcast with myself, Graham Cogar, and we are back down in the Athletic Arms Diggers Vaults. It's another warm one, Ang.
Absolutely. I'm waiting to come down here in winter when we all need a blanket.
I know, exactly.
I might stop sweating by the end of the recording.
We did say it would be quite good if I said, Angus, you know what to do, clap us in, and then it just cuts to the three of us sitting topless.
Yeah.
But it's a warm one. It's great. There is no Ross Barr. There is no Fraser Souness. There is no Chuck Kerr. But fear not, as Angus and I have always said, if it was just the two of us sitting having a conversation, I don't think anyone would listen to that. But we have always got to have somebody on the podcast who knows what they're talking about, and it's a great pleasure to welcome along to the podcast Carol Crafts, the sales executive for Ardnamurchan and Adelphi. Carol, how are you?
Very well. Thanks for having me.
No
Pleasure to
problem
be
at
here.
all. Thanks for having a name that's the worst name to say as a Scotsman.
I know.
Well,
it's
it sounds
absolutely brutal. Isn't it?
It sounds like a shop in Bruntsfield.
Carol Crafts.
Carol Crafts.
Yeah, welcome along.
Yeah.
Crafty
Somewhere
Carol.
where there's like crochet and
Yeah.
That's how I got here originally. That was the original concept,
The
and then
original.
shifted to whiskey. Yeah.
Ah,
that was it.
fantastic. But
Yeah.
great to have you here, Carol. Now, I'm going to say this. You are, I think you're the first American we've ever had on the podcast.
All right.
Ooh,
All right.
ooh,
That's why no one
ooh.
else came then.
That's a big claim. I'm not.
Yeah.
I think you possibly might
Yeah.
be right.
You're making the
Yeah.
Whiskey Stories podcast great again.
History. Oh no. Straight in on the Trump jokes.
No, but listen, welcome along. It's great to have you here. I think Angus and I are huge fans of Ardnamurchan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's become almost an obsessive sort of need for Ardnamurchan. And it's great that you're coming on at this point as we're recording, because over the last 2 or 3 weeks, it seems like we've just not stopped talking about it. Last week's episode, Angus, I think,
Well,
you
this
talked
is it.
about wanting to go up there.
There was a question last week, and it was which distillery that you haven't visited. You know, given we've visited a few distilleries on the podcast,
Sure.
which would you like to visit next? And I said Ardnamurchan,
Yeah.
without a doubt. That was the one that
Yeah,
came
yeah.
to my head. And it just because of the liquid, but because of the remoteness, and it's a part of Scotland. I've been there once before, a long time ago.
To the peninsula itself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I just kind of drove through because you can get a ferry at the end to Mull.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
this was one of my dad's weird ideas: is we'd go to Mull but go the wrong way around.
Right. The inefficient route.
Exactly.
The scenic route.
Yeah,
Which actually is fair.
And it is very scenic. So, but
Yeah.
I'd love to go back up that way. And I think it started really. It was when we were doing the podcast at the Edinburgh Whisky Festival last year. I remember somebody.
Jeeves,
Jeeves,
he's
Yes,
on the Facebook group.
I know who he is. He came up to us with it was a single cask bottling. I think for
the Fringe.
yes, this was it, and it was a sherry cask. I think.
No.
It was bourbon.
But
was bourbon.
Jeeves came up with. We were recording, right?
Right.
And we were just sitting recording, and suddenly this guy's just appeared out of nowhere, who we recognised, and he's just pulled a bottle out of his bag and just. We were in the middle of recording, and he's just gone clink, clink,
popped
clink,
it.
and just gone. There you go. And I think it was literally just Ardnamurchan Sherry.
It could have been.
I think
yeah,
it was.
I think it was.
I think it was just Ardnamurchan
was.
Sherry, and it just kind of hit a note. with us.
I had an idea it was a single cask sherry, but
The
I
single
think
cast,
it was,
the single cast one was the Whiskey Fringe
Like
one.
I think it was a private bottling, but it might not
Aye,
have been.
aye.
I had that in my head, but I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, it could have been a couple things. I mean, not that we needed, fully delve into it, but
Yeah.
Fringe is one of our big hitters, right? So we tend to bring the beans for whiskey.
Well,
Fringe,
I'm
so-
sure if I remember correctly, that was the conversation everyone was having last year at Whiskey Fringe.
Yeah.
Was have you tried the Ardnamurchan stuff
Well,
yet?
this
Because
was
it's-
it. It was the first time we'd tried Ardnamurchan and sherry.
Yeah.
And it blew our minds.
Yes, but I mean,
And we had that exchange where you were saying you were
Yeah,
just
fell
so,
a bathtub.
so chuffed with the 2024 sherry, which is
yeah,
which is
and
really cool.
basically, I think that was that was my drama of the year.
Fill a bathtub, yeah.
Fill a bathtub with it, and I'd bathe in it. And see, tonight I would happily do that right now if there was a wee bathtub behind us.
Yeah.
I'd just get in.
Yeah.
Whilst you were here.
Sure.
Camera rolling.
Because
Back to the shirts off. concept,
Yeah, exactly,
yeah.
but no, but it's just I don't know. And then we had, and it's with the greatest respect in the world, it was Simon Smith who said at at our pintail tasting, he was like, just Ardnamurchan are becoming annoyingly good. And it's like every single thing that they're putting out at the moment is just better than the last one, or just as good, or just constantly. And it was the Ardnamurchan Thompson Brothers Dornoch Castle release. I absolutely love. Simon Smith has one that he did with the George Hotel in Inverary. Fantastic. And it's like, how many releases are you going to do? We had the debate, the conversation, Angus, when we did our What 3 barbecue drams, and we stuck the AD on in the middle, because we were sort of saying like that 50-50 of bourbon and sherry, and the peated and non-peated, and just like if you're having a barbecue and you want something sweet that's got a bit of smoke in there, but you don't want to be overpowered, just fantastic.
Oh, it's brilliant,
They partnered very well with my cremated sausages.
Absolutely. That video is available on YouTube if you want to see Angus's cookery skills, as well as the 3 drams that we have. But listen, Carl, it's great to have you here.
Pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. How have you found yourself in a cellar with 2 random guys you only met today?
Yeah, I mean it's a fun path. Certainly fun from my perspective, right? So been in booze for a while. You know, pretty much my whole career since I was definitely not legally able to drink in the U.S. Right, like the 21-year-old limit over there. Yeah, I was originally in beer, like craft beer. As craft beer kind of really took off in the States, that was like my initial passion, kind of during uni, even prior to uni, if we're honest. And then, I ended up managing a pretty cool, like high-end beer-focused bar in Washington, D.C. And did that for 4 years ultimately, kind of rose the ranks there. And then, like long story short, moved to Seattle, worked for a brewery, a really great brewery, worked for an importer as well, and then moved back to Boston, got a different role with that importer, and then got this kind of very fortunate job with Scottish government. Oh wow! Which is pretty random, but they have trade specialists all over the globe. So basically, my job was alcohol specific, which obviously for Scotland is like
makes a lot of sense.
Whiskey and gin, right? I sort of had it like not knowingly worked throughout the supply chain in the U.S., which is a bear. It's miserable, if we're honest. You know, you've got different tiers, distributors at each state level, 50 states, retailers. Anyway, so I kind of helped Scottish producers as like basically it's a tax benefit, right? Like my salary was paid by taxpayer money.
By the Scottish government.
Yeah.
So right. So your job was basically what, to try and help introduce new brands into the States?
It could be anywhere along the path, right? So you could be like a mom and pop gin producer on an island, right, off the coast, with 3 employees, being like, how do I get into the U.S.? And usually my answer was like, go somewhere else first, right? Because it's way too much money, way too many barriers. Or it'd be someone like, Ben Romick, Gordon MacPhail, or like I worked with Richard Urquhart on a couple things, bigger, well-established historic brands, right? I didn't work with the big brands all that much because they paid multiple people to do what I did. But it was that little benefit for an independent or a slightly smaller brand to say like, hey, how the hell do we get into Pennsylvania, which is like government controlled? It's impossible, but there's 2 big cities, like things like that. It could be any number of things.
Really? So would you deal with like American importers as well to try and
So that was initially how I met the importer that Ardnamurchan now goes through is Impex Beverages, and I was working with Impex to sort of I was a little bit of a, I don't want to say a pipeline. That seems like I did my job all too well, right? But I for the right company, I would maybe try to introduce them to that importer or to another importer, depending on their size.
Who's the importer that we met, Angus? What was his name?
Howard
Sachs.
Howard Sachs.
Sachs, yeah.
Do you know him?
No, I know the name. I don't know him.
So
we met him in Dornoch.
He based primarily down in Florida, I think, and there's a couple of other southern states. Import, and he worked for a couple of brands.
Lady of the Glen was a big one.
Lady of the Glen was a big one for him.
And Glen Wibis, I think he was doing stuff with.
So doing some smaller.
And I mean, he was speaking to the Thompson brothers at the time. So.
Well, that was it. We were literally were up there.
Just happened to be there.
We were doing something.
Joined us for breakfast every morning, and then he was just on his own.
Cool.
And we were like, and basically, I think Howard had gone up Phil and Simon were looking after us up there. And I think it was like the Friday night, and Howard was there. And they're like, "Oh, Howard, do you want to join us for dinner?" So it was just like Ross, Chuck, Angus, myself, Phil and Simon Thompson, and then there's this guy, just this American guy. And we got chatting to him, and he was really, really interested. And the next day,
he was there for as much as kind of personal, indulgence as well as business, because he was kind of visiting Bell Blair and Clynelish.
It's beautiful up there too, right? What a place to visit for whiskey.
So you're helping. So basically, from a government point of view, if I'm a small bottler or distiller, and I say, listen, I just want to get into America.
Yeah.
How do I go through some sort of like Scottish government import help desk type thing?
Precisely.
And then they would say, we've got Big Carl over here.
Yeah. Of course, there's protocol and red tape to get through, right? Of course. But yeah, that's exactly right.
That's it.
They just make sure, basically, someone on the back end makes sure that you turning over enough money for it to actually be viable for you to look at a country like that for export. But yeah, long story long, I guess. Sorry, that was lengthy. But yeah, I met my now boss, Alex, our managing director, and our sales director, my other boss, Connell, through that. Chatted to them a little bit about Canada. It was more of Alex had the contact. We'll talk about Alex, and he's been in the industry for a long time, very connected. But he was kind of verifying, hey, you've had experience with this agent, you condone that, kind of working with them going forward. And I was like, in that instance, I was like, yeah, I think they're great. And then I was going fully down. I'd always been a whiskey nerd, right? When I was 22 in the bar in DC, I ended up buying spirits. At the time, bourbon was going absolutely nuts, right? This was 2012. So yeah, bourbon in the States was the thing, but
and DC is a great place for whiskey as well. I've forgotten the name of it, but there's a particular bar.
Jack Rose.
Yeah, that's been mentioned a few times.
We've had that mentioned on the podcast.
It's been mentioned a
Have
few
you ever
times
been
on the podcast.
No,
I've never been.
It's mental.
It's a few people have mentioned it.
Eduardo mentioned it,
and possibly Charlie Hume, maybe.
Yeah.
Even.
So what? So a bar in Washington DC that's just a whiskey bar.
I've seen pictures of it.
It has
it's
more
just
whiskey.
bottles.
Man, can I go this far? It has more whiskey than I think I've seen in a pub in Scotland.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just because it's American, right? So it's absolutely enormous.
Yeah.
And they have bourbon. So they've got single cask from Buffalo Trace. It's just everything you could possibly fathom. And then they also have, certainly not as much Scotch whiskey as you'd get. No. Right?
But in terms of whiskey.
In terms of whiskey, it is a 25-foot wall, 2 faces. Just tiered out ladders, the whole 9 yards. It's mad. It's mad.
And what's great is there's every chance, right? We've got a listener who's our US brand ambassador, Scott Moore.
Out in Tennessee,
right? And he tunes in every single. Scott, shout out to you.
Love it.
He pulled me up because we did a bit of bonus content last week, and he sent a message in, and I, after a dram or two, decided I'm going to try and read it in his accent. I think he said...
failed miserably.
Yes, I did.
Please stop.
He said, how about you don't do my accent and I'll not try and do a Fife accent. Yeah. Scott, I actually want to hear you do a Fife accent because I think it'd be great to hear. But
Full Kirkcaldy.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's the game. Give me a high 6. But basically, he did a great video, and you'll have to watch this. I'll send you the link. He did a great video for us. And it all stemmed from the fact that we do a weekend dram roll call every week on our Facebook group. Please get involved in it. It's absolutely fantastic. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just a thread of what everyone's drinking over the weekend with a little write-up if they want and what have you. But Scott put a picture up. He's got this whiskey bar in his house in Tennessee. Ross has spied this random bottle, and he's like, "How the hell have you got that in your place?" And then he said, "We need to see your thing." And he did a video of his whole thing, going through all his bottles, his whole whiskey collection, and everything like that. But he talked about hunting old dusties, right? And he'll travel 3 hours across state lines to find a liquor store that he knows, and he'll go and he'll find an old dusty bottle and he'll go, wow, and it won't be priced right probably, and he'll be able to get it for an absolute bargain. But what I love to think, Carol, is there's a good chance that Scott Moore has and I'm going to use the romance of filter through the heather and all that stuff with Scotch whiskey, but I think Scott Moore has a bottle of whiskey, Scotch whiskey, on a shelf in his house that you've probably had some sort of fingerprint on of getting it into the States and into his living. There we go. We're taking it.
I won't take the credit, but it's possible.
Yeah, well,
it could well be there. Yeah, it's a huge place and a small place, right?
Yeah.
And I think whiskey is that way almost across the board, right? You run into people in one state in the U.S. or in India. We were talking about India earlier, or Connell's over in Japan, and there's this guy that was at a tasting in Fife, right? Like 6 months prior, and I'm like, how the hell is he there?
Yeah.
It is one of those communities for sure.
Wild. We had
it is mad. Yeah.
Who was it? Who was talking about this? It was a distillery, and they were talking about a tour. Was it maybe Stuart Baxter or something like that? And he was basically saying like, oh no, wasn't sure. Anyway, long story short, they'd done a tasting over someplace else, and then they were doing a distillery
I
tour.
think it was Mike Brown.
Mike Brown, yeah.
It was Tamdhu, because the Tamdhu did an open day. And
there was tourists there, and they're like, you did a tasting for us in Japan, and we wanted to come.
It's just crazy.
And it's wild, because whiskey, there is an element that whiskey is a village.
Yeah.
Right. Scotch whiskey industry is massive, and you'll know from the Scottish government's point. I don't know if you've got the numbers, but like in terms of what Scotch whiskey does for the Scottish and British government in terms of exported,
you can't measure it really.
No,
you can measure the numbers, but realistically, in terms of like the actual the lore of Scotch whiskey, right?
So it's like
it's abstract. It's that big.
We've talked about the fact that you can walk into any country.
How many Olympic-sized swimming pools?
Well, yeah, but you can walk into any country, you'll find the Johnny Walker Black label, you'll whatever, all that kind of stuff. But in terms of that, it's mental that as an industry, it's so small.
Yeah,
it's a massive world global industry, but yet, like you say, you cross paths with different people within the Scotch whisky industry and things like that. So you're obviously working over in the States at this point.
Yeah.
What was the decision then to cross the pond?
Yeah, so my partner and I, she and I wanted to move to Europe for a while. And basically we both decided to kind of shoot our shot, so to speak, professionally. So I actually, Ardnamurchan Adelphi, as I really got into whiskey pretty aggressively, turned into option 1A, right? If I got really lucky, that would be amazing. I love what they do. I love the concept. I love the ethos. It's the size that I was looking for. So I just wrote to Alex and Connell, having had this relationship of talking about Canada and all this, and I was like, hey, you guys can't know unless I let you know, which is maybe the American in me, right? Being a bit forward about it. And I was like, if you were to be growing such that your team grew, I'd like to be considered.
Okay, cool.
So I just kind of did it. I threw a dart a little bit. And to Alex's credit, he was basically like, well, thanks for letting us know, we're not ready yet. And I was like, oh, fair enough. So then, my lady ended up getting a job in Sweden when she kind of went down her avenue. And then Alex got back to me, maybe 6 months later, when I was gearing up to move to Sweden with no job and just figure it out.
Yeah.
And then he was like, hey, I think let's do this. And I was like, shit, great, amazing. So yeah, we kind of figured it out. I moved to Scotland. She moved over from Sweden eventually.
Well, that's like a tiny commute in the States, isn't it?
Exactly.
Scotland to Sweden. You've been looking at the map, you're like, that's just
a little swim. You're there.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I love the fact that, I've got a saying as well, shy bairns didn't get sweeties. So if you're quite open to be able to say, now, you mentioned as Alex, who's Alex then? Tell us, so Alex who?
Right.
People?
So Alex Bruce is our managing director. So Alex has been running Adelphi and then subsequently Ardnamurchan since 2004.
Right.
As managing director. So yeah, we're 21 years in now, which is a bit crazy. Was in the industry prior. So he has a terrifyingly good palate. He's one of those guys where he's, really, really relaxed, really includes all of us, and I'll talk about how that fits into my role and all that. But then you sit down to a tasting or a blending session or dinner with him, and he says things every once in a while, like, "Oh man, you've been doing this for a while."
Really?
Yeah. He's one of those guys, and he's a tremendous guy to work for, as is Connell. So it's basically, there's obviously ownership. And that's how Ardnamurchan happened, and I can talk about that.
Who's Connell? Sorry, Connell.
So Connell's sales director.
And what's his second name? Sorry.
Mackenzie.
Connell Mackenzie.
Right,
okay,
so Alex Bruce, managing director, Connell Mackenzie, and then the sales team kind of spreads out underneath Connell, and I'm part of that.
Right.
So that's kind of where we sit.
You mentioned Adelphi and Ardnamurchan then.
Yeah.
So I think now a relation of Alex is Alex is Antonia.
Correct.
Right. So I've met Antonia a couple of times, and we did a tasting, It was a versus. Well, it wasn't really a versus tasting, but it was Finn Thompson and Adelphi at the Glass House. Natural Science put on, and I knew Adelphi and I knew Ardnamurchan. I knew they were connected, but then it wasn't until Antonia went through the Adelphi, and I'll be perfectly honest, I haven't tried an awful lot of Adelphi at all, and
there's not enough of it.
No, well, this is one of the things that she said, and I was trying to, whilst hosting, it was very hard when you're hosting something like this, and you've got, I think it was like 3 drams on one side, 3 drams on the other side, so it was very difficult I had to be very conscious of not falling into podcast mode, because Antonia would talk about something, and I go, I really want to dive into that a little bit more. I really want to find out a bit more about that. But basically, it was really, really tricky too, because we had a tight schedule with 6 drams to get through. So trying really, really hard not to dive in, because Antonia would start talking about something. I think I really, really want to ask that question, but then like, no, I can't, because we've got another whatever drams to go through. But it's fascinating, because she told the whole Adelphi story about who Adelphi were. There was something about, now you'll be able to tell me, Adelphi distillers, the distillery in Glasgow, the washback breaking. Right, okay. I'll let you maybe know a little bit about that. So,
sure.
First of all, like, who are Adelphi? What do they do? And then how on earth did that move into Ardnamurchan?
Yeah. I'll try to be relatively brief in interest of time. But basically, Adelphi's been going nearly 200 years. So 1826, right? So Adelphi was founded as Adelphi Loch Katrine, so Loch Katrine, the water source for Glasgow. And
so I just want to say, as an American, the way you pronounce Glasgow is so good. That
was all right.
It's not Glasgow.
I mean, I lived there, so I would be dead by now.
You've done really
There's no way I'd be on this podcast if I wasn't like at least 80% of the way there. Right?
You've done well there. Right? Anyway, sorry, Loch Katrine.
Although my Loch is still kind of American, it's still a bit of a
That's
K.
okay. That's
a
okay.
bit of a K to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so founded as a distillery in the Gorbals,
right.
So south side of the river.
Would have been busy.
Yeah, indeed. Basically, was really successful for a while, kind of through the mid half of the 19th century. There's a gentleman named Archibald Walker who owned it back then. He owned a distillery in Ireland, also in Liverpool, I believe. So he had a little bit of a whiskey empire. The washback incident happened as things were kind of on the back end of the whiskey boom in the 19th century. So it was the first decade of the 20th century, 1900s. And a washback collapse triggered a chain reaction, flooded Inverkip Street, which was where it was located, and actually killed a man and like 4 horses or some, there's like a newspaper clipping of like just running through the streets and killing things.
Because they do say, like, you can still smell it, they say. There's a bit of like folklore there that like
Is that something about Glaswegians and washing that you're alluding to or something?
No.
Smells still lingering.
I'm sure, because like they'll tell the story about it, but I read up on it, and now I might get this wrong, but I'm sure there's like maybe markings on walls, old walls.
I think that is real.
You can see this is how far the liquid actually
kind of tide mark.
Tide mark.
It's like the high water mark with the high wash mark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that was. I mean, that's. You have a laugh about it, thinking like how many thousands of gallons must have been running through the street.
I mean, to properly kill a man, like,
exactly.
He either had to be tremendously pissed, or it was pretty serious, right? Or both.
And do you know where the Adelphi name itself comes from? Because it strikes me as quite, there's like an Adelphi theatre in London, so it must be a name. I don't know.
I mean, I think the word is of Greek origin. Right? Like how it folded in 1826. I probably should know that, and I don't.
Right. He's had a research.
I should have looked it up.
I don't now that you say that. I think I did at one point, but I don't have it. But basically, like, fell in hard times. 1970, it became the Glasgow City Mosque. So that gives you a sense of how Glasgow changed.
Right, wow.
But then, so 93 is the big date. So the great-great-grandson of Archibald Walker found out that the brand technically still existed. It was owned by, I believe it was a law firm down in London, just randomly kind of like tacitly held.
So basically so the company's folded.
It's not
the brand is still there.
But this has happened quite a few times, because quite a few kind of old brands have ended up being owned by kind of very odd companies, and people buy them back and we're going to make this blend again or this brand. But that's really interesting.
So that great-great-grandson, Jamie Walker, bought it back in '93. That's when it became an independent bottler.
Okay.
And then he sold it in '03, 10 years later, to our now majority shareholders.
Right.
Which is primarily two families, and they hired Alex a year later to oversee it, and Alex has grown the business exponentially.
Wow.
And then, to keep it really brief, those two, at the time, those two gentlemen, it was Donald Houston, Keith Falconer were our owners at the time. Keith has unfortunately passed, but his family is still involved. They also owned land on Ardnamurchan.
Right.
And so that is why we built a distillery in the middle of nowhere.
Because we have the land.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So there's a number of production sites that they looked at. This was back kind of 06, 08, I believe. Alex, I think, was pretty prescient in seeing what we're going through now, which is just this insane demand for liquid, which from a bottling standpoint, right, I mean, we've all seen it. The price of casks has skyrocketed, right?
Of course. Yeah.
You know, back 10 years ago, Adelphi put out some stuff that we would absolutely kill for now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but he saw that kind of starting to happen, and that's why we built a source of liquid, right? So Ardnamurchan, we broke ground on that site on the peninsula 2013, 2014, first distillate, end of July.
Wow. Yeah. So quick.
So we're in our 11th year now.
That's-
in fact, what's the date?
It's the 23rd of.
Yeah, so
July.
we're days from being 11.
That's mad.
Yeah.
That's aye. Because I mean the Adelphi situation then. So as a bottler,
Yeah.
where does a lot of the stock go? Is it predominantly abroad, different markets, or does it get filtered out? Because it's not like I say. There's certain independent bottlers that you'll see on the shelf in the UK regularly, but then there's other independent bottlers that you've gone, never heard of these guys. They must be new, and then you find out, no, we've been going for years, but it's just we haven't really.
Yeah, I would almost put Adelphi kind of in the middle. It's one you see occasionally,
Yeah.
but not always. But you know, and I remember Whiskey Fringe last year. Obviously, there was a bit of a buzz around your 10-year-old Ardnamurchan, but there was also. I remember
It
spending.
was Whiskey of the Fringe, in fact.
Yeah, it was.
I think we won.
It
We
was,
got the
yeah.
highest vote,
You
which
did.
was a bit of a coup.
That's cool,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
pretty excited.
I
about
remember spending quite a bit of time at your table because there was Ross Barry sometimes on this podcast.
Yeah,
well, he
of
is on
course.
this podcast,
Yeah.
but not tonight.
just not currently here.
Sometimes.
Not
Again, there's an American in the
sometimes.
room.
Ross
so he-
Barr, who's like a returning
Sometimes.
guest on the
Oh,
podcast.
well, becoming like a returning guest now.
Yeah.
He gets annoyed when he finds out. Yeah.
Well, he was away, so couldn't be on the
Yeah.
podcast. That we're
He's
recording.
married to an American.
And
He's over in Boston, actually.
Yeah,
There
and
you
he asked for us to kind of bottle a couple of things just in little sample bottles and give him a kind of taste of Whiskey Fringe. And it was a Chichiboo, I think an 8-year-old Chichiboo, that I bottled for him.
Yeah, last year's was it an 8-year? That feels about right.
I think so.
a
Yeah,
bourbon
I think
cask,
so.
yeah,
But
yeah.
he enjoyed it. It was I really enjoyed it. It was really good. I remember trying it and being like, "Yep, that's the one."
Yeah, we try to find fun stuff, right? That's the
And
ticket.
how much bottling goes on at Adelphi then? How much are you doing?
It's small. It's small, right? So that's been an interesting thing, I think, for the company. You know, going from bottling like maybe 80, 100 casks a year to having a distillery that makes 400,000 liters,
Yeah.
right? And then once you start, you know, we launched the single malt 2020, so we launched it as a 5-year-old. And it's gotten sort of progressively older. I think it was technically 5, but a lot of it was 6 kind of thing, right? That shift of like, but the cool thing was, and you asked about where the Adelphi has gone, like because it has a little bit of legacy being, you know, close to 32 now, we had importers for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. So like the big old school whiskey markets, right? Netherlands comes to mind, Germany. Those guys imported really small quantities of Adelphi, like as a really kind of niche, hey, you know your whiskey, this is single cask strength, for 15 years before Ardnamurchan happened. And then all of a sudden we were like, hey, here's like,
We've done this.
here's some pallets, you know, and it's just like a very different shift.
That's cool.
So
When you have a, we did the Gordon MacPhail interview a couple of weeks ago now with Stephen Rankin, and you're looking at the Gordon MacPhail journey as being, you know, a legacy of independent bottlers that then have made the decision with Ben Romack to go into it and things. I suppose it does make the business model a lot easier and things like that as well. Do we see a shift in Adelphi now pulling back on the bottles that are going out with Adelphi versus everything going into Ardnamurchan, or will Adelphi still try and carry on as a brand and still carry on producing, bottling whiskies and put them into markets?
Yeah. No, Adelphi will definitely carry on, and not to get too in the weeds on it, because I'll pour you guys a dram here in a second. But the beautiful thing is, and I'm assuming, I don't know, Gordon MacPhail's very, like, they do their things their way, which I respect immensely, right? But if you think about where we're at now, Ardnamurchan, from an Adelphi perspective, is a different currency.
Yeah.
Right? So we can trade spirit now.
Yes.
That is not cash, right? There's a different what would you say, like a different menu if you have spirit to trade as opposed to just money.
So so what you're basically saying is, like, because this is an area that we don't often talk about, is the fact that, like, normally we would look at an independent bottler as, like, it'd be a cash transaction effectively to say, hey, look, now we hear stories about parcels, buy big parcels. We've talked to loads of indie bottlers about the hassles that they have, or not hassles, but the challenges of sourcing good liquid and of course good wood as well. Whereas now, I suppose, instead of having to pay that money, if Ardnamurchan are going, listen, we've got liquid instead of paying for casks. But also, I suppose then, from a distillery to distillery point of view, it probably opens up bigger channels than from an independent bottler to distillery point of view.
Correct. But I think it's just looking at the umbrella of the brands, right? So even, like, I think that, speaking as an American who's, like, relatively fresh to the industry, let's be real about it, right? Like, that sort of old school, like, trading concept is still alive and well, even with the big boys, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people in whiskey know that, but a lot of people out of whiskey maybe don't, right?
Like, we found that when we went up to Speyside a couple of weeks ago, Angus. It did amaze me how many, when we went to distilleries, and they were actually saying, like, we've got a lot of liquid here, but there's only so much of it that actually goes into our bottles.
And we actually spoke about a good episode where we did speak about it was when we spoke at Inchdarney.
Yeah.
And they were talking about the Glenhenry brand, which they're saying, well, we're distilling this brand specifically as a brand that goes out the door, as it were, to other blenders, bottlers, etc., etc. So, in a sense, they're doing what you're doing as well. That
I think everyone's doing it.
Albeit, I think they're doing it more to sell it, and
well, they have one specific.
Which is
brand effectively of how they've distilled it, that they will say resell this.
Yeah.
Anyone else can bottle that and stuff like that. And but right. Well, first of all, we've got drams in front of us. We do have drams to get through. You've already poured me this, Angus. What did you have before?
You want to hear that?
So I had two. Yeah, go ahead, please. I had 2 drams before. I just, as I said, Digger's very busy today. I just came in straight. Just went for the specials board. Had a Ben Romack 10 and a Tamdu 15.
Solid,
Just really solid, really good night, really good
just
price.
paid like a firm handshake, and that was 2 drams for you.
Exactly.
But sometimes you come into Diggers and you don't really have time to look at everything behind the bar. 2 drams I know and 2 drams I love.
Superb. Now, Carol, you've poured us a dram here from a bottle that is the Ardnamurchan Midgie.
Yeah. So this is, we have one whiskey kind of from our core range, let's say. And we talked a little bit about the flagship, the 50/50, and I'll touch on that. And that, I guess the important part to talk about with the 50/50 is that at Ardnamurchan, since 2014, we make an unpeated and peated distillate.
Yeah.
And we, rather than someone, like Tobermory, Lechik, our neighbors, realistically, are a great example of 2 brands, right? Unpeated Tobermory, peated Lechik.
Yeah.
We, rather than that, tend to incorporate them into one brand with multiple expressions.
Yes.
And then it's just a taste, right? So this is, rather than 50/50, and then that core, that flagship Ardnamurchan Single Malt is 2/3 bourbon, 1/3 sherry, 46.8%. And that's the one that we export to 48 markets. That's our big boy, right? That's the one. This is a fun, right? We're independent. We get to take the piss a little bit, right? So as opposed to another stag, another eagle on a label. No offense to those companies, right? 100% for it, right?
Yeah.
And I'll talk about Aaron later in a very respectful way, speaking of eagles. Ardnamurchan, you've been once, but not to the distillery. Have you ever been to the peninsula?
No.
But you've been to the West Coast. You know what the midges are like, right?
Yeah.
they're diabolical. It's crazy.
They
right?
are, yeah.
They're absolutely mental. So
I was just thinking Scotch whiskey would look very different if it was based in Tanzania or something. Giraffes and elephants. Yeah.
We've got stags, eagles, and midges now as well. So that was it. That's it.
Yeah.
But
so we want to have fun with it, right? So this is the second batch. So basically, the idea will be it's actually going to be part of our core range in the sense that it will always be there every year. How the volumes fit in and whether it sells out depends on the market. We'll see, right? Last year, but the recipe will change every year.
So what's this recipe then?
So batch 2 is the first ever bottled Ardnamurchan that has port influence.
Okay, yeah, because there is something there, yeah.
Yeah. So the concept behind the Midgie, unsurprisingly, is we're having fun. We're not going to charge you £100 for a fun bottle. We try to keep our prices quite reasonable generally, right? Whiskey's for drinking, right? It's for enjoying with your friends, with your family, whatever. Especially this, right? It's called the Midgie, right? It's got to be a bit fun. So it's the sweet and the peat for an affordable price is the way I look at it. So 54 pounds retail. It's 48%, so it's actually bumped up from the flagship. And half of the vatting, half of the batch that we blended is full maturation port, 6-year-old. Wow. 2019 full maturation. Unpeated on all the port. And then we basically built that on a base of bourbon maturation. So it's our kind of, the base that we often work with is a mixture of peated and unpeated bourbon barrels. And then just for shits, there was a single peated sherry butt. So the sherry just literally, so we have a blending team. I'm very lucky to be a part of it, and we're unusual that way, and that feeds into Alex. We can talk about that at some point. But we were at the table tasting it effectively. We had tasted just the bourbon and port to be Midgie. And then we were like, what if we had samples, right? We're just mixing it together. We're like, what if we threw a sherry butt in? Because very often it adds, I know it sounds ridiculous, right? It sounds completely ludicrous, but it adds that depth. It's not dissimilar from the 4th dram, and I'll talk about that. But there's something that sherry brings to whiskey, even a bourbon-forward expression, that can really round out the tasting experience, I think is how we feel. So basically about half unpeated port, and then peated, unpeated bourbon, and then just that touch.
Because there's not much peat in there. I don't detect an awful lot of peat in there.
No, so on the whole, it'd be about 25%.
Because I was actually going to say this. If you'd asked me if this was a peated or unpeated release, I'd probably have said it's unpeated.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a wee bit I can sort of maybe retrospectively knowing that it's peated kind of pick up on it. But very, very nice. And that port stuff, it kind of throws you off the scent a little bit, doesn't it?
Right.
It's totally different.
Yeah, because it's a summer dram, right? It should be quaffable. It should be approachable for people that don't love peat. I think that's really important. If you're at the beach, you're at a campfire, you guys had a barbecue.
Well, that's exactly
right? Right? That's the whole idea, right? Like, go tan a bottle with 5 mates.
Well, that's what we were
responsibly,
right? Barbecue responsibly, like we did.
Right.
Burn your sausages to make sure they're cooked.
And so when it comes to your peated spirit and your unpeated spirit, you talked about 450,000 litres production.
400.
400,000 litres of production. How much of that is peated? How much of that is unpeated? Is it 50-50 or is it the ratio is a bit different?
It's 50-50 in concept. It is pretty much 50-50. Obviously, malt availability, the needs with what has been pulled from our warehouses will fit into that a little bit. But it's still, by and large, the way we intend to operate is either peated or unpeated, shut down, right? 2 week shutdown, summer or winter. The other shut down.
It's 6 months peated, 6 months unpeated. That's the idea. In effect.
And that's why the flagship bottling is that. Right, it's a snapshot of when you guys come. I won't say if, right? Absolutely. When you're at the distillery, the warehouses are majority bourbon, second majority sherry, right? So that's the maturation profile: 2/3, 1/3, and then 50-50 of the distillate.
What half of the year do we have to come in for it to be peated production?
You just have to send me a message, man. We'll figure that out.
And in terms of so you're based out of Glasgow, so you live in Glasgow. You're saying there, right? But then the distillery. So how far from Glasgow is the distillery then?
So it depends on how well you know the roads,
right?
Or I guess how familiar you are with single tracks.
Right.
So the last hour plus, there's 2 main routes. There's about a 6-minute ferry, the Corran ferry between Oban and Fort William, and that.
A 6-minute ferry.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Yeah, you're like you know, do whatever, and then you're off.
That's
and
you're
off
off
you go.
again,
But especially the last 30 minutes of the drive is like single tracks, full wines, very, very old school. Yeah. So I've done the fastest I've done as a non-Scot is about like 3 hour 5
from Glasgow,
and that was mildly irresponsible.
So I mean, that's a fair trick.
Yeah,
I mean, and that is to get out that neck of the woods. And
we had Stuart Dick on works for Torre and he had all sorts of stories about you know, delivery drivers coming up, you know, to their bit. I mean, I think you have the same kind of issue.
Oh man! So our distillery is literally crafted based on the roads, right? So when you come, we have the single biggest piece of kit is the mash tun.
Yeah.
And I think it's 3.3 meters wide, and there's a video of this.
Yeah.
There's a flatbed truck with that mash tun on it, obviously overhanging the flatbed.
Yeah.
And there's a bridge. And it scrapes by like about the width of a pint.
So they had to try and get did they have to build the mash tun with the knowledge that it's got to get over that bit? That's the narrowest part
That is how big our distillery is.
Really?
Right? Because short of that, it's helicopter.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you can... I mean, I guess you could figure out a ship.
Yeah.
But it's
a
coastal lock.
Stick a mast in a mash tun and just sail it up there.
That's it, yeah.
I mean, the mash tun arriving at Eden Mill caused a big stooshy because it got stuck at the roundabout in Cooper. Right.
Did it?
Yes, there's a roundabout in Cooper where you got, and it's a tough.
I know the roundabout. Actually, because that's right where the Fife Whiskey Festival is every year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I know this. I know this from personal experience because it's a random story. I'll try and keep this brief, but basically, my mate got married. A good friend of mine, George Shields, got married at the Old Course Hotel.
Right.
And it was up to his brother, who was his best man, useless best man, I should say. His brother won't be listening to this, right?
Half the time,
useless best man, right?
Absolutely useless.
And he was too young at the time. And basically, what had happened was Thomas, the best man, his brother, God bless him, he said, I've done something for him that's going to be special for the day of the wedding. And I said, oh, what is that? I've hired us a white stretch limo from Kirkcaldy to the Old Course Hotel, right? And I never forget it was because we struggled to get around that roundabout with a limo, right? Because the driver had gone that way with the limousine.
Yeah.
And so imagine a flatbed lorry with a mash tun overhanging it. And I remember it caused a huge stooshy. It made all the Facebook page groups and everything like that. But yeah, so getting up there, I'd imagine grain lorries. I don't know whether the grain merchants will look at their line and they see they're going up to Ardnamurchan and go, oh, Christ almighty. Yeah. But is it a nice drive? Is it? Because you hear about these stories, like you're going up to the different...
I'm sure
Stuart... second to
I'm sure Stuart said it, right? Yeah. West is best, right? Sorry, I know you're from Fife. I love that. and Adelphi is based in Fife, right? We have a lot of love for Fife. But, I mean, I remember going up the first time with Alex, and Alex was driving, and I was just kind of gasping.
Yeah.
It was pretty unprofessional look, but I couldn't help myself. It's really, really
stunning. To get that scenery when you're going through and things.
It's unbelievable.
And the distillery is it open for visitors to visit, or is it?
So people can 7 days a week in the summer.
Really?
Often in the winter, or maybe 6. Obviously, staffing out there can be a bit of a beast, right? It's there aren't too many people in Ardnamurchan.
Yeah, so what's the nearest sort of larger sort of town or anything like that?
Probably like Fort William or something.
Yeah. So if you live, there's 2 big towns, Kilhon, which is on the west, which is the ferry to Tobermory, and there's a Herrickle, which is kind of somewhat at the intersection between if you come from Fort William way and you go by Glenfinnan and down the top roads, or if you're coming up from Glasgow or Edinburgh, you take that little 6-minute ferry. Those 2 towns are not big.
No.
And if you live in Kilhoan, you grocery shop in Tobermory, right? So you're on the ferry.
So you're going to the ferry to get your message.
Yeah, there's no.
And in terms of staffing, then.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a nightmare of a commute. From a local point of view, it's not like there's a mass area of locals that can work for the distillery as well. I'm sure maybe I don't know. But how do they, for you, for other people who work for the distillery, is it operations out of Ardnamurchan Distillery, or are they fairly flexible with working? You're sales executive, so you'll be out and about.
Yeah.
But in terms of production, you'll have to be on site all the time and things.
Yeah, so we have 4 employees on site. So we have our warehouse manager, one of our shift leads on the distillery, are one of our 2 marketing people and our soon-to-be sort of brand home manager, visitor center head. Our distillery manager lives in Kilhoan, so he drives 20. Wow, he probably does it pretty quick. Knowing him. Well, I'm gonna say
locals on these single track roads.
I'm gonna say Gordon. I'm gonna say Gordon's like definitely under 25 minutes from Kilhoan. He might correct me. We'll see if he listens. And then there's some in the other town to the east. So for a local, and especially if you've gotten used to living out there, it's half an hour, right?
That's nothing.
Look,
but
it's
not
a distilling. In Edinburgh, right?
But it's not a distilling like we up in Speyside, right? It's a distilling area, right? So basically, you're either related to somebody that works in the whiskey industry, or you
have people who have grandfathers and their fathers were distillers, and it's in the blood. You know,
whereas up there, there's never been a distillery there, so it's not like heritage distilling is something that's been up there for all this time. So being able to source local people that can do these things must have been really, really challenging at the time.
Yeah, and we're actually proud of kind of how that training fell into place, right?
Of course.
And how we do it organically. So I mean, our distillery manager was a bus driver,
right?
Really? And so like, it was all about do you have the interest in learning it, right? And sorting it out, and then pass on that knowledge to the next group.
And this is something we talked about when we talked about the Isle of Harris distillery. How they've obviously primarily they've tried to upskill, as it were, to use a kind of business term, upskill locals and teach them how to distill, teach them how to do the various jobs that need doing on that site, rather than bringing in people from the outside in. Have people, and obviously they're a great success story in the sense that there's people that have kind of, left 10, 15 years ago and then came back. So I imagine it's kind of almost a similar kind
Very
of story.
Very much, I mean, we're the second largest employer on Ardnamurchan. Right? So the largest being just one of the big seafood companies.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's, I mean, we have, including the whole sales, the Adelphi side, I mean, we're under 40.
Yeah, so
right, and we're the second largest employer.
So small business, but yet you're second.
What's the next round? What's the other story? What else we got here?
This is a fun one. This is probably one of my favorites. So this was released kind of the start of the year, February, March, somewhere in there. Have you guys tried this?
No. What is it?
Madeira.
The Madeira. I think we might have had it.
I think we have tried this at some point.
I don't know if Kev
twist your arm and pour you another touch.
Go on. Remind me. Let me remind you.
I have a feeling like we may have tried this somewhere along the line. Because if we saw Ardnamurchan Madeira, we'd definitely.
And we're not just saying this to bum you up. I mean, even like Neil Trippers.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate
Neil Trippers put on the Facebook group just like yesterday as we were recording this, saying that he's away up north. He's way up on a whiskey trip. What should he take? So I just asked, well, first of all, where are you going and how long is it going to take? Is it 5 hours or off to Ardnamurchan? And you're like, right, well, the one thing you need to take with you is us. But
a big suitcase that I can fit into.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, but one of the things like Simon was talking about when we said in it's like annoyingly good, and we're seeing this with so many newer distilleries. Is the fact that I've said it so many times. Nobody is old enough. Nobody is alive today that tried Springbank and went, can't wait to see what it's like when it's 10.
Yeah, right? That's exactly right.
You know, but we are getting to live through this, right? But the thing is, the whiskey evolution. We know that whiskey up until I can't remember when it had to be aged for 3 years in a day, that rule and stuff like that. But we know that there was whiskey in the 1890s would have been shite. Right? And there's nobody alive that go, rubbish, you never got a chance to drink that. But I wouldn't
say shite, I'd say wildly inconsistent.
Well, but I mean
knackered wood.
You'd have some glory.
I mean, my theory is surely you would have some stuff that just maybe by intention, maybe by hacky accident was just amazing. But equally,
stand it beside now, though.
There would have been, because the science has moved on and all this sort of thing. We know about how wood and spirit interact and all that.
And even if it was gloriously good in the 1910s or 1920s, stand it beside something that's 15, 20 years old now, or even 10 years old now, and it would still. The flavour difference would be incredible.
I mean, like when was penicillin figured out? Right? Like not that long ago. Exactly. Right? Like people were just like, let's let's make some liquor,
so
right? Like,
what we've seen through the whiskey industry is this evolution of flavour, what people like. For example, the reason blends are so popular is because people couldn't handle the stuff as soon as it came out the still. So they were like, right, we need to blend this with something else. Lowland whiskey, softer whiskey, grain whiskey, more palatable, and bulked it all out, etc., etc., etc.
Of course.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing now is this new age of this explosion of new distilleries that have been opening up. And one of the things that through the science and technology and information, and because of the evolution of what's happened before, people that build a distillery like Ardnamurchan can just build it so that the first drop that comes out of this is going to be spot on. It's engineered effectively.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. Is we've seen it with Indy. Now, there's every new distillery, either like the guys at Dornoch, they like to look back and they say, we are following all the traditional ways of doing it. Then you have Indy, they're saying, we have a nod to the traditions with the types of barley that we're using, but at the same time, we use the use of technology that can engineer whiskey flavours and stuff like that.
Their filtration thing is mental.
Yeah, but how do Ardnamurchan do it then? What are we looking at as a distillery? Is it old school, old fashioned? We want to make it the way whiskey was originally made, or is it no? We're engineering this to be like copper contact is massive. We've designed this distillery to be exactly like this. But maybe have a nod back to the traditions of whiskey making.
Yeah, it's pretty traditional in terms of just the actual day-to-day distillation, right? So Alex has that background that I spoke of and has been in whiskey quite a long time at this point. Yeah. And a lot of it was geared, like we're on Ardnamurchan, right? There's no other distillery. There's technically a gin distillery in a shed. It's actually pretty good gin.
Right.
But like we kind of have that, in the same way that until Torvik, Talisker had for Skye.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So if you're in our minds, or I guess I can say our now. I guess that's supposedly fair. But when they created it, right, it was this has to be West Coast, right?
Okay.
And that's why the unpeated peated happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's also reflected in how the distillery is put together. So it's very manual. When you go through, yes, of course, it's 2025, right? But it's basically temperature gauges and pump valves.
Yeah.
There's no computer. The computer, in fact, we should be better at computers than we are.
Better at computers.
Yeah, that's a phrase. I guess that proves the point, maybe. Look, like if you're on MASH at Ardnamurchan, you're up and down a flight of stairs 45 times a day, right? Yeah. Like you're turning levers manually, and that's how we operate. Like on the still, it's all run. So the modern part, not to get carried away here, but it's a big question, I suppose. The modern part and the benefit that we have as one of those 21st century distilleries is we built it with sustainability in mind.
Yeah,
sure. Right. So this is the most important thing, right? I'm never going to lead with sustainability. It's about what's in the bottle.
Of course.
But we're in this beautiful place that we've talked about. The way I like to put it, as a salesperson, I suppose, is distilling is resource intensive. Like if you disagree with that, I would argue you're wrong. Mm-hmm. It uses a lot of water, a lot of grain, a lot of everything. So we try to minimize that, and we try to keep it on the peninsula where we can.
Yeah.
So it's a biomass boiler that operates the whole site. Tomatin does that, but they also have backup, so we can technically claim that we were the first to have only biomass.
Yeah.
And then Nicnean did so, our neighbors at Nicnean. But yeah, it's all renewable wood chip, so replanting basically shitty pine that was planted for timber at a 2-to-1 rate with local species. Yeah. So they're cutting down all this pine that was planted on the peninsula.
It's a challenge that the whiskey industry is only going to come up with more and more and more.
Yeah.
Is the fact that, look, people will say it's a luxury brand, and anything that has luxury in it is not a sustainable thing because there's packaging, there's transport, there's travel, it's flying around. You hear stories of people who will travel all around the world to sell one bottle of whiskey and things like that. But at the same time, the production side of it's obviously a challenge as well. Yeah. Cutting peat is only going to get harder and harder. People are now talking about how dangerous it is for the environment to cut peat, and of course we've got to do that. On a sustainability model as well, away from the sort of the greener side of things, what about business sustainability? Is Ardnamurchan built with capacity for growth. We were up at Glenmurray,
Yeah.
Angus, and
I
you hear the story where they've we've had to build a new still house and split them up, and
I mean Emma, who is a wonderful host up there. I mean, she talked about going from kind of 3 million litres, 10 or 15 years ago, up to kind of 8.5 million litres. So huge, over double.
And when that distillery was built in the 1800s,
right.
so it's like no one was building it at the time.
And even when Glenmurray, take it back to 15 years when it was 3 million, that's still 5-6 times more than what Ardnamurchan are producing.
So like when they built the distillery, were they building the distillery in the mind of, let's build this, and is there a cap of how much Ardnamurchan can start to produce? If in 15, 25, 30 years time someone's gone, we need to go from 400,000 litres a year to 1 million and then to 5 million, because you just don't know with the way the industry is going.
Yeah.
Is that something, or will Ardnamurchan, you mentioned how many markets Ardnamurchan's getting is in just now?
46, 48.
Yeah. So is it are you a craft distillery, or are you you're not a powerhouse distillery because you're not at 400,000? But where do you see Ardnamurchan fitting in that, in between craft and powerhouse?
Yeah, I think we say small to medium.
Right.
I think we're hoping to sell commercially.
Yeah.
Right. Like this isn't just like a household thing. Right. There's a reason I was hired. That we're a small team. We graft. We put a lot of hours in. Right. But 400,000 liters. I mean, that's nearly double Springbank until recently. Yeah. Right. So this is the way I like to put it. Going the other way. I mean, think about Glengoyne. A brand that is everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. 1.1.
Right.
So it's like a little, I think I made that number up, but it's somewhere in there, right? It's a little over 1 million, right?
Just over double.
Yeah. So like, we're not there, but we're not tiny, right? Yeah. So like, I think that's how I like to approach. I would love to sell whiskey in the same way that Glengoyne or now Kilchoman, who's increased, like, and that would be my answer to your question, which is to say, I wonder if you asked Anthony, 20 years ago, are you going to increase in the next 20 years? Maybe he would have said yes.
Well, I mean, it's a question that you have to think about, because the thing with whiskey is like, when you're making whiskey, you're thinking about, you're having to think so far ahead. Yeah. So for people that are making the whiskey to think that far ahead, the people that are making the distillery have to be thinking even further ahead.
Completely.
Where are we going to be in 100 years' time?
Yeah.
Because it's 100 year. It's a nearly a 200-year-old industry that we're in.
Yeah.
So you have to say, if we're part of that, we're not here for like, we'll probably last 15 years and then what have you. Who knows? But actually, you're saying, well, you're starting it fresh. Who knows where the whiskey industry is going to be next year? But who knows where it's going to be in 30 years' time? And trying to think that's really, really important, isn't it? Like, markets open up, markets close down a little bit.
Yeah. So
you'll probably have to juggle that. But it's just very interesting to see, because we're in such a fortunate position as consumers, is the fact that, like, we've talked about Arran, right? Arran Distillery is like the oldest of the new guys, right?
30.
And that's
how crazy is that?
Yeah,
right?
But then Paul Main was on the podcast. Paul Main was talking about how, like, he can remember as a whiskey geek in the 90s, like, having to read magazines and get excited about
Paul's great.
Arran opening up. Yeah. And it's like that's what it was like then. And then you suddenly look at the acceleration of new distilleries that are opening up now. And as we've said, as Simon Smith said, it's like, it's annoying how good they are, right? and it's great because, well, just keep it coming. That's all we're saying.
Yeah.
Keep it coming. But
I think we're just trying to craft whiskey honestly, right? We're just trying to put it together. We don't lie. Transparency is huge. We've got the QR codes. I don't even this is not the form for QR codes. To me, it's about, I know as much as I possibly can about this whiskey. I'm sure you could ask me a question about production, and I'd have to ask someone.
Yeah.
It's not my strength, right? But like, we're just trying to tell you what we do. It's in a bottle.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
If you don't love it, that's all right. Like, there's so much good whiskey out there.
Yeah.
To your point, right? Like, go try Torvik. Go have an Aaron 18 and like blow your face off, right? Yeah. Like, there's so much good stuff out there.
But it's just, but there's somebody who makes this though, right? There is somebody who's involved in the process that's going, whilst we're sitting there going, that is brilliant, and there might be someone there that's going, not yet. Because I know that with that spirit style, with this type, with that type, I know that when that hits 15, it's going to be even better.
Yeah.
And we don't know that yet.
And I think, but that's the excitement. And
That's
we'll
really
touch
exciting.
on the.
Yeah, let's try.
Let me tell you about. Did I tell you about this?
Well, tell us about
Madeira.
Madeira.
No,
Tell
no,
about
well-
Madeira.
Yeah, well, I'll be brief about
Yeah.
it, right? And I think, sorry, especially because it does kind of align with the conversation, which is to say, this is a limited release, 26-month Madeira finish, 40% peated, 60% unpeated, 52% alcohol. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
I helped put it together, so I'm biased, right? But this is 18,000 bottles,
That's it. Right, okay.
right? So that's a fair sized batch,
decent
right?
release.
For
Yeah, I
a
mean-
smaller distillery,
Yeah.
like this is something we have got, especially with those first couple years. We were lucky; we had a pretty good name for ourselves, partially through Adelphi. We're happy with the distillate, but we have a lot of retailers, like partners, who are saying, "Wait, you have more Madeira," because the assumption is we put out like 5,000 bottles.
Yeah, it's a small batch.
But
yeah.
like this is, we have more. Like we have
it is
enough
si-
of this
yeah.
to sell for a couple months.
Yeah,
right?
because
Like
it is sizable. Because you think of something like, for example, Lagavulin. When they do their phase release, I think I've seen it like one of 6,000. So
Yeah.
if that's what Lagavulin are doing for a special release 6,000, and you're doing 18,000,
Yeah.
just to put it in
But the thing is, as well, so was this a one-off? This is a limited edition, or was it?
Yeah, so we
what's
did-
it? What's a? I mean, you're talking about 18,000 for that. What would a core release?
so it depends on where we sit with the previous batch.
Right.
But it'll be, it could be 12, 15,000, it could be 25.
Yeah.
Um,
Because the danger is, it's a funny from a sales point of view, right?
Yeah.
That I want to get into this, right? Because it's an area that I like sales and I enjoy sales and stuff like that as well.
Sure.
But there's always a danger, right? It sounds amazing if you sell out, right? Sell out. We sold out within a week. Sold out within a week. But then when you're in a space where there's hundreds of other bottles that the consumer can pick from.
Yeah.
So if I want to buy this bottle here and there's only 5,000 of them, I'm desperate to get it. I go to the shop, sold out, can't get it anywhere. I'm disappointed, but then I forget about it. So whilst it sounds amazing, like, oh, we sold our batch out within so many days, the problem you have then is actually, like you said, we want this to be on sale for months. Because the longer it's on the shelf, the more chance there is. I buy that, I love it, I finish it, I buy it again.
And also, it's more likely that you remember the brand and buy the next iteration.
That's exactly, yeah,
Right?
exactly,
So
yeah.
if and I think only Springbank can negate this comment that you're saying and that I'm saying, but like, if you're in the States and you're finding out about new distilleries and you can't get Ardnamurchan,
Yeah,
you're
find
not going to
another
drink Ardnamurchan.
Yeah, you just
right?
find another one. Yeah.
Screw it, right? Like you're going to go drink an
great.
Aaron 10 for some outrageously low price,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're going to get a Benromic 10,
Yeah,
whatever it
because
is.
why go to the trouble?
Yeah.
Whereas,
Well, I don't drink Springbank 10.
No.
Further, there are people. I will, first of all, I will not make any effort whatsoever to get my hands on a bottle the way that other people do. They know that the releases are coming. They're like, right, I'm going to do it. If I see it behind a bar, though, I'll have a dram of that.
Yeah, I'm
but
the
at the same
same,
time,
yeah.
is you also know that if the bar can't get hold of it for a length, but
Right.
like you say, Springbank have built that. But we're talking about two types of distilleries here.
it's not
You've
a
got-
fair. Springbank isn't a fair comparison to anyone.
No, exactly.
Right,
Because but their legacy and but Ardnamurchan can be new, and like you said, how many other new? If I like you just said, I've never heard of Ardnamurchan, never tried Ardnamurchan, never get hold of the stuff. I'll drink something else.
Yeah.
And that's the way. So actually, because this must be the real difficulty from a newer distillery point of view is, and like you said, this obviously fluctuates massively on what the sale of the last batch was.
Yeah.
To work out how you do it, but again, that takes time because when you actually start thinking about it, by the time you're getting all the sales information, you know, you're 3-6 months ahead.
Correct.
For when that releases to go out.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just a case of batch is ready. By the way,
Yeah,
go and
no.
sell it. You've got to go right. Hang on a
No.
minute. And from a financial point of view, and this is where the thing that a
And
lot
it
of
may
people,
have just landed in a country like the States or Japan.
Yeah.
They may have just gotten the previous release 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right? So then we're like, hey, like, how much do you want of this? And it's like,
don't
so this is the danger of doing, we've done a lot of releases of late, and we're like, we're proud of them. And that's also partly due to the market because the consumer wants what's new, what's different, what's unique, right? I think I assume anyone who's come on here, the core has been a trickier sell for the last 5 years, right? Because certainly, like in a lot of export markets, you have consumers who are like, okay, I've had Ardnamurchan Single Malt, I've had Ardnamurchan Cast Strength, what's next? as opposed to ever thinking, oh man, that cask strength was really good.
Yeah.
should I get another bottle?
Yeah. And this is it. I mean,
well, because we live in a world where we're spoiled. We could just say, how many releases are Ardnamurchan putting out in a year? Then what are you talking? I mean, is it what?
It depends on what's ready.
Yeah, and because you're doing a lot of single casks.
Six-ish.
So I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, to say.
But then plus single casks.
This is what I was saying, because you do a lot of single casks yourself, and obviously that kind of harks back to the Adelphi thing as well.
Precisely. Right.
Whereas it's like, okay, we are a distillery, we are going to do releases of 18,000 bottles, but at the same time, we're going to put out single cask releases to the public.
And also
you have to, right?
Yeah.
Like if anyone ever went to the George, this is a good example because you brought it up.
Yeah,
right? You walk into that bar, you go to the gantry downstairs, and there's and I know the George is in funky times right now. Let that go. But 15 to 20 Adelphis, probably 10 to 14 Ardnamurchans.
Wow.
Right? That 5 of which are single cask from somewhere no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
How do you not support that? How do you not give them a little share, right?
But the thing is, from a market point of view, and it harks back to what you were talking about in terms of how the industry works, is how much of Ardnamurchan that goes into the bottles. Thank you very much. How much of Ardnamurchan that goes into the bottles versus how much of Ardnamurchan that the business model is the bulk liquids getting moved to somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is, right, and we've had this debate, and look, the industry, some people will tell you the industry's hitting a bit of a tricky time at the moment.
Sure.
Some people will say there's a lot of liquid moving around, but at the same time, different markets are maybe holding back, what have you, who knows. I've heard mixed people say, mixed reviews on both. Are we getting told we're in a bad time versus actually what is, or what have you? Anyway, but the point of the matter is that the industry has survived this length of time, distilleries have survived this length of time on selling bulk, right?
Yep.
The big blenders.
Yep.
We talked about Glenmorangie Angus and things like that. And when we see a single malt bottle in front of us, you go, you just automatically assume that's all they do. You go, no, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
See that Glenfiddich bottle there? For every Glenfiddich 12, there's about 4 grants that are going around the world.
And we've heard
probably more.
Because we've heard anecdotally from some of these.
Glenfiddich's big.
From some of these distillers, the stuff you sell in bulk is your bread and butter, and what you're releasing as as your core range, as your single malt, is your kind of cream on top.
Yeah. Single malt's a relatively new product in itself,
100%.
It's not. I mean, you actually look at the
maybe,
200 years of whiskey history, and from 1960 till now, that's what people have been used to. So actually, and you go around. So when you talk about single cask stuff, there are whiskey drinkers in Scotland. There are people that we know who like a dram that still don't. And I was one of them. Angus would have been one of them as well, who still didn't fully understand, or still don't fully understand the concept of single cask whiskey.
Yeah.
And foreign markets as well. I mean, how many out of the American market? It's a market you'll know best.
The number of people that I come across when I say I'm on the blending team for a single malt distillery, and they're like,
"What do you mean?
What?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, so and then what you have to do is talk about probably the most successful brand in single malt.
Yeah.
27 million liters, whatever it is today, as opposed to yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Like, what, you think those are all single casks? And then they're like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
of course, it's a vatting, right? Blend is a dangerous word.
I think, and Graham and I have experienced this. I think for the kind of casual whiskey drinker that knows what a blend, knows the terminology of blend and single malt, it gets confused. They don't, people don't understand that something that's a single malt is something that has been blended, and that concept.
But so this is what I'm saying is I mean, going back, you're bringing out 6 releases a year.
Give or take.
Give or take, yeah. But that's a lot. And some people would say, oh, you're flooding the market with giving people too much choice. But at the same time, is for brand loyalty, like you're saying, all right, there's going to be there's a house dram that you like, and you can lay your hat on it. I can't see past the AD. I'll always have a bottle of that on my shelf. But then at the same time, hang on a minute.
Oh, sherry.
There's a Madeira one, or a sherry one, or this, that, next. And then there's the other side of it going, if I see a Thompson Brothers that's got Dornoch, it's got Ardnamurchan on it, I know I'm taking it.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm going, that's going to be...
And that's huge for us too, right? Because imagine the hypocrisy, right? Born of Adelphi, born of an independent bottler. If we weren't, especially friends with Phil and Simon, friends with the SMWS crew, friends with, like if we weren't selling to indies,
it would be
how outrageous, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And even letting them put the branding, like the name, because again,
Ian at North Star, all these guys, right?
You can't put the barriers up to the kind of businesses that you are yourself.
It's ridiculous, So.
So what's this?
What have we got here?
Yeah, so this is. I mean, we're talking a lot about age and where everyone fits in, right? This was a huge milestone for us. So this is sold out. I brought this from the flat because I think it's appropriate.
Thank you very much.
Oh no, it was a good size batch. It's nothing too crazy, right?
There's another bottle or two in the flat. I think
I do have one closer for you that you might not have seen.
Okay.
But yeah, so this was the 10-year.
And this is huge.
Yeah, we're a 10-year-old distillery, right? How crazy is that? Especially as an American guy coming in a couple years ago, being able to sell this is pretty exciting. And I know the Glasgow team just crossed that threshold, and they're chuffed about it.
So just for those that might not have tried it, what was this composed of, spirit-wise, cask-wise?
So kind of a funny order, and I did it sort of intentionally to get your opinions. Appreciate if you're candid about it. So these were both partially peated.
Yes.
In 2014, so first distillate, end of July, early August. We didn't do any peated distillate that year. So when you turn around 2024, the 10-year has to be unpeated.
Yeah, okay.
By rule, right?
Yeah.
So this is entirely unpeated. Half of the batch is 50% alcohol, so slightly reduced, but not far. I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Half of the batch is just first fill bourbon, clean, unfettered, unpeated Ardnamurchan spirit. The other half, so we have a bottling that is probably our cult bottling, so to speak, is the Paul Noir, the champagne finish.
That was a what 3 dram by Charlie Hume.
There you go.
Charlie would do that.
Yeah.
He's a good lad. I appreciate that. It's nice to hear. So I don't need to get down the Paul Noir rabbit hole. It's a crazy beast. We're lucky to have it. People love it.
Because
it's a Grand Cru champagne house that we're friends with the owners.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But it can never be a champagne cask officially because
correct. It's a Chardonnay.
It's not champagne until it comes out the cask.
Yeah. It's Chardonnay from a Grand Cru champagne house.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to be a bit funny about the terminology.
We actually just owned it. We're just waiting for someone to. I think we do say champagne just because screw it.
Yeah.
But for this celebratory bottling, half of the batch was finished on those champagne casks for a year. So it's different from the Paul Noir bottling, which we do once a year, and it's only about 3,000 bottles because they're also a small producer, so they send us like 12 casks. But this was a larger vatting, and half of the batch is that. And
it's nice that it harks back to that as well.
Sorry?
It's nice that it harks back to that kind of release, that your first 10-year-old that loads of people are going to try has something of the something of that kind of beloved.
The thing that people really latched onto, right? Yeah.
Is this right? So, will Ardnamurchan always bring out an unpeated release and a peated release, or will they only ever bring out mixed peated? Like, so there might be 30% peated in this one, so there's always going to be peated influence in this. So is this kind of like stripped right? If you're a big geek of Ardnamurchan and you're like, what about that release, the one release that they brought out that was completely unpeated?
No. We will always do a range.
Right.
It will always trend towards partial of each.
Yeah.
A la Niji, Madeira, right?
And of course, you'll always have single casks as well.
No, but if you were on that, like as a core, like you could say, this one pillar is always going to be a completely unpeated release of Ardnamurchan.
We've done. Connell might yell at me if I get this wrong. To my mind, we've done 3 fully unpeated releases in Ardnamurchan livery.
Right.
Apart from single casks. The Sauterne release from August last year, and then the first batch of Madeira was cask strength unpeated. That was October of 2022.
Okay,
That was before my time. We've also done, the cask strength is part of our core range and is 95% peated. So just a touch of unpeated. So that's the one that you can almost always get and is the other end of the spectrum.
So this is like
We've also done the recent Mezcal release, which was only peated spirit.
And it's nice that, like, from a new distillery's point of view, there's very few new distilleries, I think, and someone will probably correct us. But going back to the Glen Murray video, Angus, that we were up at Glen Murray, and I really, really respect Glen Murray being a legacy distillery as such that's been going for as long as they have been, that are so open to just being like, nah, we just quite happy. We're not fixed on one cask type.
Yeah.
We'll just fire it into this, fire it into that, and see what comes out the other end. And you know what? We'll that's what we do.
Yeah.
And that's just like, that's what I like when a new distillery having that. Like, there's no constraints from a new distillery's point of view. Cost being one of them, probably.
Yeah,
if you're sourcing your cask, that's going to be a cost. But at the same time, new distilleries that are saying, like Ardnamurchan, they're going. You've just mentioned like Sauternes, Mezcal, Madeira, bourbon, sherry, all that kind of champagne or whatever. You know, and you're saying like that having that freedom as a new distillery must be so much fun.
Yeah.
Because you'll find trends, right? That worked. The Madeira worked, so use the Madeira. Port worked a little bit, but not as much as this. So go heavy on that. But at the same time, it must be just great fun being able to and being on the blending team.
Yeah.
The access that you must have
It's a blast,
to be able to go like you said, just the concept of how many's in the blending team?
6.
6 of you sitting there with your blending kit in front of you, and just going, why don't we bang a bit of sherry in that? Just see what comes out of that.
Genuinely, man, it's hilarious, right?
Just sitting there
so
going,
that was Antonia, actually.
Really?
Yeah. And you mentioned, I should mention, Alex's sister.
Antonia,
She's been with Ardnamurchan since day one. Adelphi prior, worked for Paul Roger. Alex worked for Justine and Brooks, so they were in wine for a while. But that was like her. It was hilarious. She was banging on. She was like, it's better with the sherry. It's better with the sherry. It's better with the sherry.
Yeah.
And that's how it works sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like we'll have sessions where Graham Mackay, who's also on the team, he'll be like, hey, I think it's better this way, and like the MD and the sales director, like Alex and Connell, will be like, nah, we kind of like it here. And Graham and maybe myself or whoever be like,
is it a case of who can argue the most passionately? Or
well, no, maybe. But it's a credit, I think, because Alex could just like put himself as master blender and be like, piss off, this is what we're doing, right? Which would be fine. We'd be good, right? That's largely how the distillery was built, behind that idea. But he gives us that space to hash it out, and sometimes
and in a way that's future proofing it as well, because if it means if it's a collective decision, there's more people involved. You're gaining skills of blending. Other people on that is doing it as well. So,
exactly.
But I mean, when it comes to the experience of really the connections, the wine industry connections that Antonia and Alex have, that must play a huge part in terms of what you can source. Because I mean, we know how difficult it can be sometimes for distilleries to get their hands on good wood.
Yeah. Is
it down to those personal connections that really helps Ardnamurchan in terms of getting hold of the best casks that you possibly can? Yeah, and the Adelphi, I mean, 32 years is not that long, but it's long enough, right?
Well, yeah. So you build connections through that.
Alex, like we're in with Miguel Martin in terms of sherry, who's the same guy that does Glenfarclas, Macallan, right? Like he's the godfather of Jerez in terms of selling casks to Scotland.
Sure.
So that's huge for us. And it's also, I think it's also just the mindset, right?
Yeah, of course,
it's the commitment to, hey, we're going to pay more. We're going to ship cask whole from Kentucky. We pay a cooperage Kentucky bourbon barrel in Louisville to check every cask, because you can't exactly get to Speyside cooperage from Ardnamurchan.
No, so you need to have them,
So they show up, like the team out there are pretty handy, but like they're not master coopers, right?
No.
Like, so we ship those whole from Kentucky pretty much ready to rock.
Which is a cost in itself as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, most casks will come,
broken down
especially if you're a larger company.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Which, just in terms of volume, it must, shipping costs, it must save hugely. So you're paying for the quality, right?
Yeah.
And sorry to interrupt. I'm going to say what we are going to do is we're going to move on to our What 3 drams. Okay,
let's
but
do
what
it.
we are going to do, because we could, but what we are going to do is we've got 3 more whiskies to try that you've brought in.
Yeah, sorry.
We're going to do them as exclusive content for the Facebook group.
Cool.
So this will be, podcast-wise, if you're listening to this and you're thinking this is so much fun,
If
and
you want to
another,
find out what the last 3 drams...
the last 3 drams, because I will
That were
say
brought
this,
in.
No one's gonna watch that.
if you are,
Oh, they are. Oh, wow.
if you are watching, then you'll know when I pick these 2 bottles up. If you're watching, you can see they're a cast sample.
Anything that comes in a 20cl bottle with a handwritten label. It's
Cast
gotta be
sample
interesting.
bottles, and if you're listening, that's the noise of 2 cast sample bottles, which means that you have to join the Facebook group to find out what we're drinking and hear a little bit more of Carol Craft. But Carol, I'm going to pass it on now. The What 3 Drams section of this of our podcast is basically any 3 drams that have any meaning, story, or anything associated with you. I'm really excited to hear these because your story tonight has been fantastic. And
Cool.
Yeah. So what's dram number 1 of your What 3 drams?
Old school Elijah Craig 12 before they nixed the age statement.
Okay.
So this Elijah Craig, I mean, it's a brand I've heard of. It's a brand I've seen on the shelf.
Right.
Not a brand I'm particularly familiar with. I'm a complete novice when it comes to bourbon.
We talked about this on the. Now, it came up in one of our previous episodes. Ross talking about Elijah Craig bourbon being just a quality dram that he would. But you're saying now, wait a minute. You're saying Elijah Craig 12. What was it? What was the caveat?
Okay, so I won't go too far. I promise. I'm wordy, but
No,
I'll hold it back. So the one that everyone freaks out about in the whiskey community now is Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, ECBP. Like, they love the acronym, right? But the normal statement for Elijah Craig now is just Elijah Craig small batch, I think they call it. But as of 10 to 12 years ago, their like flagship offering was a 12-year-old bourbon at 45% higher proof, and it was like at the time, and I know inflation, but at the time it was like 24-25 US a bottle.
Okay.
And that was like,
That's a bargain.
you know, when you're 18, 19, turning into someone who's like chasing flavor, right? And all of a sudden you've got like an actual 12-year-old age statement at a higher proof, and yeah, bourbon's sweet. My palate is now very, very Scotch driven.
Yeah.
But at the time, that was something that really made me click a little bit, where I was like, oh man, this is a world that I need to access more of, right? Especially coming into it through beer. Not that they were very far apart, they were kind of doing this, right? But that was a big one. From a Scotch whiskey perspective, I thought about giving a nod to Aaron 10, and I know Ross just waxed on about Aaron, but I'm not going to, because
Graham's breathing a sigh of relief.
I'm not going to. I'm going to say Clynelish 14.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
no,
I'm going to say OB Clynelish.
Yeah.
And I have a dusty story about that. Right?
Go on.
So I have a buddy. He probably won't listen to that. Actually, he might when I tell him that I was on here. Again, I'll be brief. Basically,
please,
he lives kind of in the suburbs of Boston. There's this funny little mini mart, as we would call it there, a convenience store. I don't know, what would you call it here?
Yeah, just
A shop.
Yeah,
It's just a shop, right?
Just a shop,
Where you have like 12 facings, right? And one of them was Clynelish 14, and it was just like they had no idea, but they had bought it very clearly 8 years prior, right? So it was on the shelf for 41 US after tax.
So what's that pound wise for a
24 pounds?
Yeah.
Clynelish 14?
Clynelish 14 in the US, like exported.
So it's come in. So these, I always wonder, how do these guys, like you hear them talking about old dusties and stuff like this, right? How does somebody buy?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
what have they done? Have they just gone? I'll buy. I've seen it on offer from an importer or a distributor.
No, I mean part of it is like, I mentioned this, like, well, I don't want to get too direct about it, but like Diageo has that buying power where they control all of the tiers.
Yeah.
So they can. My understanding is they can make it cost effective to price it aggressively in the States. We'll put it that way, right? And power to them. Like, they're a successful company. Well done. Look, Diageo gets a lot of grief from small companies. I disagree. Like, they're successful. They sell us whiskey still. good on them.
Yeah.
I love it, right? But yeah, they can afford to do it.
So they can just stick
So
in.
be it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and then added on to that, you have the situation where somebody's bought it 8 years ago. It's maybe not shifted particularly quickly.
Yeah.
It's gathered dust, as we say, and then
And did you know? So when you saw it, did you know what
I
you were?
cleared the shelf.
But so you went in and you saw Klein Leash on the shelf, and you go, what?
It wasn't even me. I had talked about Klein Leash to said friend who lived in this town, and he was like, "Is this a good price?" And I was like, "Buy them all."
Yeah. Because I mean,
so he bought like 9 bottles of Klein Leash.
What would you pay for Klein Leash 14 today if you were to walk into a retailer?
45-50 pounds?
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
So, I don't think you get it for less than 50. Yeah.
5 years ago, so
was
not that long.
Not that long ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty good.
But I also, prior to that, it's just one of those drams. 46% official bottling, waxy. I mean, it's just.
It's funny how you can get that
man.
disparity in a place like you would struggle to see that in Scotland. Like you would struggle to walk into a shop in Scotland and go, they're selling that for a lot less than they should.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. It would happen in a pub. We talk about it tonight.
It'd be pretty rare on the shop.
Yeah, in a pub you could probably go, how much is that? And they'll say, "Is this?" And you go, oh, how much am I getting? I'm getting 35 mils, right? And people probably think that with diggers.
Yeah.
God, the guy who runs this place doesn't know what he's doing. Keep it down. Don't mention how good the prices are. But Kev knows exactly what he's doing, I should say. But like I say, anyway, dram number 3.
Dram number 3. I'm going to stay away from Scotch for fun. And it's a bit more of like a nostalgia thing. So that first night when I was up at the distillery, the first time I was at the distillery with Alex, he poured me an old bottling of an Adelphi Cooley. It was like a 24 or 26-year-old Irish.
Oh, right, okay.
Right? Because of that link that I mentioned, the old owner of Adelphi Distillery also owned one in Limerick.
Yeah.
So this is a Cooley Distillery. Again, my Irish whiskey knowledge isn't...
Correct.
Yeah.
Cooley Distillery, bottled as Limerick Slaney. Something I don't know Irish whiskey well at all.
No.
But I just remember that being... I mean, it completely changed my perception of what Irish whiskey could be, and more because I'm so proud to be in the role that I am and lucky and fortunate. It was quite a sort of a watershed moment for me, right? Because Alex poured me this dram, we're having dinner, and I was like, "Alex, what is this?" And he was like, "This is like an '80s Cooley." Wow. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, right? I had no idea what it was.
Is this a closed distillery as well, presumably, or is
it? Man, you caught me out. As I said, I don't know.
No,
I don't know the Irish history, but I think Cooley fits in with the current history of the big boys somehow. Teeling. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't want to speak to it.
That's what.
But I just remember it as one of those things where I was all of a sudden like incorporated into Adelphi and these drams that you see, and you're like, oh my god, like what is that?
I mean, and I think you forget, like you've said, Adelphi, like 30-odd-year-old.
Yeah.
So like the cask that they'll have had passed through and that they've bottled. You've also mentioned like. Probably there's some things that they've bottled that should have held that for a little bit longer. Or well, it was good at the time, good to bottle at the time. But you look back and go, wow, could you imagine if we had that? If we had that cask now,
10 years later.
But that's just the way it works. But we see, like I always think that with independent bottlers and stuff, they must have cupboards. Well, we've seen the cupboard at Gordon MacPhail, Angus. When they're able to just go through and go, oh, we've got this from an old bottling we've done here, we've got that. So being able to just pull something like that. Now, what we do, because you're here representing Ardnamurchan, you've been great. I'll give you one on brand, a bonus on brand. If you're to go for an Ardnamurchan, you have to take that away with you. That's you, right? You and a story maybe associated with it. I've put you on the spot a wee bit here, but
no, it's good. From a sales perspective, it's the one that's going to kick off the bonus session. But I'll come up with a story. Ardnamurchan. So I do a blend. We do a blend. Every year for a big market visit that I do in the States.
Ardnamurchan.
And we can't resist a shitty pun.
Ardnamurchan.
So Ardnamurchan, we're on batch 3.
Ardnamurchan.
So Ardnamurchan batch 3 is literally on the water as we speak. It's
really?
on its way to the States.
And what's the makeup of that then?
I'm going to hold on that.
Right.
Because it's... I want to tell you. I'll tell you off camera.
Right. Okay.
But the old one.
Perks of the job.
Yeah, the old one, for example, was actually it was a sherry Madeira mixture, 900 bottles only.
Ardnamurchan.
So we do like the first one was a cask strength full sherry maturation. The third one is different. So it's kind of like Midgie. It's different every year based on like what. Basically, it's Connell and I finding fun shit in the warehouses, and probably having a bottle of wine and like being like, is that Ardnamurchan this year? And we're like, yeah, probably.
So how many bottles are you talking for this year's Ardnamurchan?
It's 900 every year.
900 every year.
150 cases.
We've got to get a bottle to Scott Moore. I want to see Scott Moore with his Ardnamurchan.
Yeah. So where does it retail in America then?
So the fun thing is, and obviously,
if we've got any listeners out in America that want to get their hands on this,
we give our importer Impex is fantastic in the States. Yeah. It's the same as Kilholman, Glenallachie, Raasay, McNean, a whole bunch of Wolfburn. We give them it's their market. Right?
Yeah.
But the concept is the first crack is wherever the tour is. So there's an Ardnamurchan tour.
Ardnamurchan, really?
Yeah. So it's in September this year. I've been booking hotels literally this week, and it's those retailers or bars that support the tour, aka do an event or whatever. Visit, have a chat with me, whatever it is, get first crack. So they, of the 900 bottles, they can order 6, they can order 60. It's up to whatever their scope is.
How far is the tour then? So are you right across the States?
No, so it's not quite that big Kilholman tour that they did with that crazy vehicle, James Wills, I think.
Oh, right, okay.
But it depends on the year. So they toss us around year to year. This year's Midwest, so it'll be Chicago, Minnesota, Nebraska, Missouri. I'll also be in Boston, but not part of the tour. In New York, not part of the tour. Who am I missing?
Yeehaw.
It's a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So,
Ardnamurchan. I think next year the Whiskey Stories podcast needs to cover the Ardnamurchan tour.
we can do that. It's a lot of fun.
100%.
It's a lot of fun.
That's been great. Carol Crafts, wow, what a man. And if you want to hear more of Carol's fantastic stories, hear him talking about the other 3 drams that he's brought, bear in mind 2 of which are from sample bottles, then get yourselves onto the Facebook group. We'll do a bit of bonus content on that one for everyone there. Carl, thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the drams.
Thank you for the drams.
It's been absolutely fantastic. Angus, we've done it again. We've managed to
yeah.
convince someone in the whiskey industry to come into this little cellar, bring whiskey with them, and chat about it on a camera. I don't know how we get on with that.
I don't know how we've done it.
But listen, thank you very much for everyone that's listening. Thank you for everyone that's interacting with the podcast. Like I've just mentioned, Facebook group, kick it off. I don't know, as we're recording this, I don't know where we'll be with tickets for our Indy Bottler Spotlight with the Thompson brothers, the big Indy Bottler Spotlight, which, you know, as we're talking, is almost sold out now. So God knows, we might actually have to extend ticket allocation for it. It's going to be a big old night on the 8th at the False Widow down in Leith.
Yeah.
If there are, do manage to get your tickets, it'll be worth it. I've seen the lineup, it'll be absolutely fantastic. There's a mystery malt in there as well. But look, don't forget, give us 5 stars, pass the pod, share the pod. The more we grow, the more we can convince people like Carol to come down and bring drams with them so we can have a drink.
Yeah.
And
join the Facebook group, subscribe to us on YouTube.
2027 Ardnamurchan Tour.
2027 Ardnamurchan Tour, the crowdfunder starts.
Cheers!
Set it up.
Well done,
guys. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Right. What I'm going to do is, for ease on editing, I'm going to stop that.